The young Sheldon spoilers reveal that Sheldon Cooper's obsession with logic is about to collide with one of the most illogical experiences of his life: love. In this upcoming episode, we open with Sheldon meticulously planning a week-long physics project. He's excited, focused, and entirely unaware that his entire plan is about to collapse when he meets a visiting girl genius from MIT named Eloise. Dr. Linkletter invites Eloise, a 15-year-old prodigy, to audit some classes at East Texas Tech, and when Sheldon meets her, he's stunned. Not because she's smarter than him, but because she challenges his logic with emotional insights. For the first time ever, Sheldon feels intellectually intimidated and intrigued. Meanwhile, Missy is suspicious. She thinks Sheldon has a crush and begins spying on his every move, teasing him relentlessly. George Sr., noticing Sheldon acting strange, dressing better, combing his hair, even using deodorant, becomes concerned that his son might be normal. Mary, however, thinks it's sweet and tries to give Sheldon the talk, which ends in classic chaos when Sheldon ends up giving her a lesson on the biochemical processes of infatuation. Elsewhere, Meemaw and Dale's relationship hits a strange bump. Dale is hiding something. He's been attending an amateur acting class, but is too embarrassed to tell Meemaw. When she finds out, she's furious not because of the secret, but because he didn't invite her to join. As the week goes on, Sheldon and Eloise grow closer. But instead of romance, they end up engaging in increasingly complex arguments about theoretical physics and ethics in artificial intelligence. It becomes less of a love story and more of a mental chess match. Sheldon declares he doesn't believe in romance because it can't be measured, but Eloise counters with a simple but devastating line: "Not everything that matters can be measured." That line gets stuck in Sheldon's brain like a stuck calculation. That night, he can't sleep. He tries to compute the probability of emotional attachment, but nothing adds up. So, he turns to the one person he trusts, Professor Proton. In a dream sequence, Bob Newhart returns as the late Professor Proton, who gives Sheldon cryptic advice. Sometimes the best formulas in life are the ones you don't understand yet. The episode ends with Sheldon waking up, writing something in his journal. Hypothesis: emotions are variables, not constants. Test further. Fade out. The following day, Sheldon approaches Eloise with a proposition. Not for a date, but for a debate. He wants to co-author a paper on the emotional variables in scientific decision-making. Eloise laughs and agrees, but sets one condition. They have to spend a day doing non-scientific things to gather emotional data. Sheldon is horrified, but reluctantly agrees. This leads to the most hilarious part of the episode: Eloise dragging Sheldon to places he finds completely ridiculous. A petting zoo, where Sheldon is terrified of a goat. A comic book store, where he lectures the cashier about inaccurate quantum mechanics in superhero plots. And finally, a roller skating rink. Sheldon on roller skates is a disaster waiting to happen. He tries to calculate balance ratios and centripetal force, but ultimately ends up flat on the floor with a bloody nose and a bruised ego. Eloise sits beside him and simply says, "That's data." Sheldon doesn't laugh. But later, while reviewing the day's events, he admits to himself that while it wasn't logical, it was memorable. Meanwhile, back at home, Missy takes this opportunity to prank Sheldon by creating a fake love letter and leaving it in his physics book. Sheldon reads it, assumes it's from Eloise, and confronts her about inappropriate emotional advances. Eloise, of course, is furious and storms off. Missy feels guilty and confesses. Sheldon doesn't yell, but says, "You've just corrupted a promising collaboration. That's worse than emotional manipulation. That's scientific sabotage." George Sr. tries to mediate, but ends up confused after Sheldon compares human relationships to entangled particles. Mary takes a different approach. She invites Eloise and her mother for dinner. What follows is a tense but hilarious meal where Sheldon attempts to apologize by presenting Eloise with a chart of how her presence affected his serotonin levels. Surprisingly, she's moved. She says, "That's the nerdiest apology I've ever received. I accept." They agree to co-author the paper. But more importantly, they agree that they don't need to define whatever this is between them. The subplot wraps with Meemaw finally attending Dale's acting class and stealing the show with her dramatic monologue about casino night. Even the teacher is stunned. Dale claps like a proud husband. The episode ends with Sheldon writing the first sentence of their paper. In science, as in life, the variables often define the outcome, not the constants. Fade out, roll credits, and cue that classic narration from adult Sheldon. That was the closest I ever came to having a girlfriend before Amy Farrah Fowler. But at the time, I was just trying to understand why her smile made me forget the laws of thermodynamics.